Alright, so I'm currently trying to platinum every single type of EA game that there is out there, and if I can't do it before the channel hits 1 million subscribers, then my punishment is I have to platinum Fortnite, one of the longest, hardest, and most grindy games of all time. So make sure to drop a like and subscribe. Anyways, today I chose to platinum Need for Speed Payback. As you all know, every single Need for Speed game that's possible to platinum is on this challenge list, and Payback is actually my second to last one I need to finish in the series. I thought the game was absolutely amazing, and I think the grand majority of people also do. Its story was shockingly well made, if I'm being honest, coming from a card game story point of view. But overall, the game contains 54 trophies, including the Platinum Trophy. The guide creator said it takes about 50 hours to do, but that's for the average player, and it only took me 26. Also, I do think this is a top 5 time, but the leaderboards don't show me for some reason, even though I'm up there. However, there is also quite a few stages to the game's Platinum, considering there is a story section, online, and then collectible, and a new side activity, which was actually super cool, but we will talk about that later. Starting off today, the goal of the first stage was just to finish the game's campaign, and that's about it, not really trying to do much side content because nothing is missable in this game. Anyways, the game opens up with a little intro race happening, showcasing us the 3 or 4 main characters of the game. Yes, you heard that right. Today was a complete orgy of playable characters, but the main 3 are called Tyler, Jessica, and Sean, with the 4th girl part of the gang being named Lena Navarro. And I say her separate from the others because this entire game's plot is surrounding her backstabbing the entire crew and foiling a job we were knee-deep in. The job we were doing, by the way, surrounded us stealing a Koenigsegg Regera, which is apparently the only car the Need for Speed writers want in any of their games, but I'm honestly fine with it because that car is crazy cool, so I can't even complain. But while we were stealing it, Navarro basically just snagged it from underneath us, and then we had to lure the cops away with Tyler, who is the main dude you play as, in order to help our other crew members who also got screwed. Ultimately, we ended up driving to a man named Marcus Weir, or the Gambler, and he is the good guy of the bad guys in the game. He goes by the Gambler as well because he owns a casino in Fortune Valley, which is just Las Vegas, to be honest, and that's where the game takes place today. But he essentially says he's going to help us get back at Navarro for stealing that car because it was actually his and we were doing this job for him. Considering we did still fail the job, though, he told us we had to be his little chauffeur bitch until he was ready to go through with his plan of getting it back, and Tyler unfortunately had to agree. The first trophy of the game then pops, and then it fast forward quite a few months into the future after the dust settles and everyone was off doing their own thing, with Tyler still just driving cars for the Gambler like he signed up for. Now, to be more exact, it was 6 months later, and Tyler is kind of on his ass, losing all of his money without being able to race for cash like he used to, because signing up to work for the Gambler required him to give that up also. But since he is literally broke, and I mean, just look at the state of his car, pretty much sums it up. He decided to start racing again, and that's kind of what we do for a little bit with him getting back into the game, that is street racing inside of Fortune's Valley. Doing so well in races that we got noticed immediately because, I mean, come on, if you win a race in a box like that, it's gonna race some eyes. So Tyler got signed up to race for this team for just one race, so we had a viable car to use for it. And the race we were doing was actually a fixed race by Navarro. Yup, she runs the entire racing scene now with a man called the Collector, all working for the House, who is the entity that is the bad side in Fortune's Valley, and they own, or are trying to own, like everything inside of it. Like I said, the race was fixed, and actually all of the races in Fortune Valley are, so that's lame as hell. But Tyler didn't care for all of that, so we just won it. In turn, it pissed off Navarro, and this is when it all really starts. You then do get chased by her thugs, and they couldn't get us. But after that, Tyler decided that he's had enough of this, and we basically convinced the Gambler to go along with our plan instead of waiting for his very slow-cooking one that hasn't done anything in 6 months. Tyler wants to get the old gang back together to work and take down Navarro for good. In turn, the game has us play as both Sean and Jessica, who are the other characters a part of the gang, and both of them have differing races that they are tied to and can only do, with Sean being the off-road person and Jessica being the runner. A runner is new to Need for Speed in this game, and it's pretty much just fast street racing, with her job being to take hot targets around the game and drop them off. Essentially a 6-star Uber driver, if you will. But after doing all of their races, you then meet up at the airfield and begin to get down to business, also picking your real starting car of the game for Tyler. I chose some crappy thing because the selection was extremely mid, but then the trophy from getting past the setup of the game begins. And the way Payback's story functions is actually very cool. It is a bit boring and dragged on, but it's still fun regardless. Essentially, you have to take down different crews to climb the rankings ladder until making it to the top and beating everyone, just to get a spot in the Rush, which is the biggest race in Fortune's Valley, and it's right around the corner. Oh my god! Now, while going to the first rival crew's race line, I actually reached rep level 2 and I got a trophy right here. But anyways, the first crew I tried to take down was called League 73, and their storyline consisted of 4 races for us to do, with you needing to win each to take them down, earn their respect, and get better stuff to move on to better crews. And that's pretty much how the story works. Sorry for explaining this game so much right now. It's a lot to get out, but it's also not complicated at the same time. A very odd combo. However, I got a trophy after the first race from winning a race against a street league, and that popped right here. I then kept on racing, and I'm gonna probably say that a lot in this video because because Payback's story is very heavily about racing and not much else, unlike how Heat's story had a lot of cop chases in it. This game actually has no cops at all, and I fucking love it. I absolutely hate being chased by cops all day. It's so dumb. Shout out to Payback's dev team on God. But the next trophy I got was after beating a race fast enough to also beat an auto log recommendation, which is just a friend's preset time from when they played it, challenging me to beat their time in the race. These occur on like absolutely everything, but if you just beat a single one, you get a trophy, so that's cool. And speaking of completing things like that, I also completed my first daily challenge a bit later on. Again, I have no idea what it was from, but it was from something simple, and there's a trophy from doing one of them, so that's a W. And I know I said we were going after League 73 first, but I swapped over to chase down the Graveyard Shift because they were on road racing and I didn't want to do off-road all the way right away. However, they have the same core functions of us just needing to win the events, and after you do them all, you also do face each crew's boss in another event added on. Winning that then pops you the trophy respectable to their crew's defeat, with the Graveyard Shifts being called La Katrina popping right here. And almost every time after you beat a crew, you also do get given the location of a derelict car. Now these are kind of an underused thing in the game. They could have been a lot cooler or more thought through, but basically there's a few of these old cars that are scrapped and scattered around the game, and if you find all the pieces then bring it to the garage, you can reassemble them for a fully drivable derelict car, also being able to make it any type of car you want. And just doing that is a trophy, which I did right here. You also do need to bring it to max level as well for another trophy, but that's not till much later on. So moving on, I went back to beat the entirety of League 73 and their boss named Udo Rolf. Sounds kind of like the noises I make when I say questionable things under my breath. But this functioned the same way as before. Once beating him in his boss event, you then get the trophy called, well, Udorov, and here it is.
Do me a favor. Shut the fuck up.
After that, I then concluded the chapter of the campaign, and we had a big event that wasn't tied to anything in specific, just the main overall plot moving forward. But it was called the Highway Heist, and if that name isn't a dead giveaway, I'll tell you all what happened. We did a heist on a highway. But we stole back the Regaro from earlier that got snatched, and it was unironically one of the most badass moments I've seen a car game have. You basically just batted around the semi until riding up next to it. Jessica then got out of the side of it and jumped up to the top of the semi-truck, then dropping inside of it and right into the car and exiting in grand fashion. You also then do swap over to play as her and drive it back to the airfield. My nuts are shaking so much right now. Once arriving back safely, it ends off the mission. You see a cutscene showing Navarro trembling from failure. But damn, her barber should also be trembling because what the hell is that cut? Looking like the 4K version of the Hog Rider from Clash of Clans, formerly known as Cock. After everything finished up though, the trophy from that then popped, which was the happy ending I've always been waiting for. Now the story then moved on. You pretty much do the same cycles as you just all saw. You get given some crews to take down through many races. You gotta win them all, get the trophies, and you have an actually big mission relating to the game's overall story like we just did, and that's kind of how it works. The next two trophies I got were then bullets from taking down crews, first being the Shift League and their boss named Underground Soldier. We usually call those people dead where I'm from, but hey, go off, King. And by off, I mean thanks for the trophy. I then defeated the Riot Club and their leader named Big Sister. I don't know if the developers have been looking at my search history or not from last night, but that's a very weird name and I feel uncomfortable addressing her as that. But it's okay because I won and don't have to anymore with the trophy popping right here. But with those two crews down, you would think we got another big story mission. However, we did not. Because as the chapters go on, you get more lines of the story to fall down, with us having to do the runner storyline with Jessica this time and deliver a lot of high target people around the game like an Uber driver in New York City. Scary sights, trust me, I've done it. However, I was also using that derelict car I got earlier for her class being the runner. No real reason why I chose this, you know, we ball. But once I did finish an event, I got a trophy from finishing an event using a derelict car, and here's that. After her runner missions, you then do get another big mission, which was a lot of fun again, just like the previous one was. However, this time it was a great deal more challenging than previously. But you basically all just meet up inside the city to see these things Jessica had gathered as intel from her runner job. However, you get spotted instantly by the Skyhammer, which is this helicopter that can shut down our vehicles with like electronic waves or some BS. And the entirety of this mission just had us driving away from the cops. It was honestly very hard, but there was a plethora of camera swaps, cool explosions, and my boy brain was indeed satisfied when everything got destroyed at the end. Love a conclusion like that. And here's the trophy from finishing that mission, accomplishing far less this time than the car steal earlier. There was then 3 crews that got given to us to take down afterwards in the following chapter of the story, with the Silver Six League being first and their boss named Galo Riveria, which sounds like the fancy salsa I have in my fridge. Shout out to the Mexicans, love y'all. But anyways, here's that trophy pop. I then got a trophy from defeating the Ember Militia and the boss named Faith Jones, the most white trash name ever aside from a bitch named Emma, and here's the trophy pop. The final crew was then called the Noise Bomb, and their boss was named Aki Kimura. I also think that a car in GTA 5 is called the exact same thing as that, and I remember it being an absolute banger. Fun fact, I have old GTA 5 videos from my prime in 2019 on YouTube, along with a bunch of very embarrassing content on the channel. Get this video to 13,333 likes and I'll release it all to the public again. again. You don't want that, trust me. Anyways, back to the video. I made it to my next main mission, and this time we stole cars again. Also, it was very fun. I like how they made the best missions of the game just have us steal things. Absolutely love it. But this time, they're both gold-plated. Not sure if that's safe, but hey, it made me horny, so who gives? But it was actually a very quick mission, and you just kind of showed up and took the cars, then drove them to a semi-truck, which we also did have, and somehow these motherfuckers landed them both in there with minimal damage. If I was the collector watching this I would almost give them an applause because my god, that is insane. After all of that, the trophy from the mission then did pop, by the way. I was then onto the final chapter of the story, and we had 3 more crews to destroy before the rush event and the ending of the game. First being the 1% Club, low-key a fire name for a crew, and their leader named Natalia, who is a fucking bitch, by the way. I hate entitled rich people with a passion, and that's on God. But here's that trophy after I bet her over with a sports car the way creation was intended to. Next was the Hazard Company and their boss named Holtzman. Sounds way too much like my last name, so I hate him, and here's the trophy after beating them all. And finally, the last crew I did was called the Diamond Block. Not to be confused with the Diamond Minecart, shout out. But their boss was called Mitko Vasilev. Low-key bro has Vaseline as his last name. And by the way, if anybody has Vaseline by their bed, you know damn well they're not moisturizing anything but one part of the body.
What did he say?
However, once defeating them and getting this trophy, we officially made it to the rush event and finale of the game's story. Actually, though, before that, I got a trophy from taking down 100 pursuit vehicles being cops during one of my last runner missions as Jessica, so here's that. Also getting that derelict car up to level 399, which is the max for another trophy pop. But then it was on to the final mission and trophy of the story called Against All Odds from bringing down the House of Fortune's Valley. And the initial stakes were set right away when the gambler bet his entire casino on the rush race with us winning. And in turn, Navarro bet everything the collector has on his behalf. Bro definitely did not sign off on that one, but with the Hog Rider cut, you gotta one-up everybody apparently, so shit. Basically, you just begin the rush event with Tyler having to place top 4, kind of like the series races from Unbound, if you guys remember those. After placing top 4, you then swap over to another character and do an off-road race again, having to place near the top. But this time, cops got brought in, and they actually aren't too much of an issue for the most part. Once finishing top in the standings, again, it then swaps back to Tyler, and it's a 1-on-1 race against Navarro to finish it off like God intended, with the goal being to obviously win, and it's honestly not too hard. Not only does Navarro have a completely clapped haircut, she can barely drive a damn car. And no, that's not because she's a woman, it's because she's African American.
Oh my god!
I'm just kidding, it's all jokes. Calm the f down. God. Cannot be saying this with almost 1 million subscribers, that's for sure. Once you do cross the finish line though, you basically win. I mean you do win. Everyone absolutely loses it because we did the unthinkable, beat the house. And here's that final trophy pop from the story, finishing off stage 1 of the trophy guide. Moving on, I began stage 2 immediately afterwards, and this one is the collectible stage. However, you actually can buy a map from the DLC of this game, which reveals everything, and I did that forever ago, so I'm down $5, but this saves a ton of time and ease to get them all, so it's kind of worth it. There also is only 2 collectible types, being the gambler chips and the billboards, so really not that many, especially when compared to Heat and Unbound. The first trophy I did get here, however, was from equipping a full set of Americana brand car parts because I felt like doing that and also did it on accident, so yep, here's that. I then strapped in, and my next 2 trophies are both these collectible ones, and it took me in total about 3 hours straight of playing to get these all acquired, so really not too long, but still not fast by any means. And here's that Gambler Chips trophy along with the Billboards trophy a few minutes later once I did find the last one, which is also a fun fact, hidden underneath a Gambler Chip. F***ing love to see it. And real fast before beginning the next part of stage 2 being the activities of this game, which are just these speed jumps, speed traps, drift zones, you know, the usual stuff. I just got up to 240 miles per hour in my Regera for a trophy called Hyperspeed, which popped right here. So all of my next trophies got them were then just from doing all the activities I just mentioned. And this is by far the worst part of the game's list in terms of difficulty and annoyance. My method was first doing all the jumps, speed runs, and speed traps with one car being the Regera, obviously. Only changing to my off-road RSR occasionally when having trouble on an off-road variant of these events, but I pretty much stuck with the Regera throughout. And I didn't do the drift zones until after because those definitely require a drift car and not a race car, which is what I was using. Anyways, long story short, this took me about 4 to 5 hours of playing to get the first 3 of them done with. First being the jumps, and by the way, the trophy pops upon just completing all of them, not with 3 stars, but you should be ensuring that you do get 3 stars before moving on. I then did all these speed runs afterwards, and these are the worst of the activities in my personal opinion. And finally, the speed traps, which are the easiest of them all, again, for my experience. I then swapped over to my best drift car, which was the Lamborghini Huracan, almost at max level and performance. And I'm not gonna lie, I don't really think or consider myself to be a good drifter in video games, but god damn, I was shredding with this car. And I mostly do think it was just because the Lambo is crazy good at drifting in this game. But I think at max, the most attempts I did in a single drift zone was like 5 or 6 before I got 3 stars. And once I did 3-star them all, I got the trophy called Active Lifestyle from a 3-star rating on all the activities in the game. And the Drift Zone trophy also did pop along with that. So that was stage 2 finished with, and I then began stage 3, which is the online stage of the game. And before beginning that, I got a trophy called TechMate from equipping a full setup of Next Tech brand car parts. This time was also 100% intentional. Shout out to pay to win EA Games, allowing this to be basically bought through in-game purchases, which is retarded. But going back to stage 3 being the online stage, there's only really 2 online trophies here. One of them was from completing 5 events in a common speed list and then 10 events in a ranked speed list. A speed list, you might be asking, is just a lobby with 5 races in it where you go up against other real players in the game. And I want to say huge thanks to everyone in my Discord that was able to hop on and help. It means the absolute world. And we actually had a super fun time doing these trophies together. You know, at least I did. It really brought joy to my face seeing my loyal fans crash into trees and choke at the very end of the race 5 times in a row. You know who you are, my brother. But I ended up getting that 5 normal speedless trophy first, and then the ranked one afterwards because that one required 10, which is 2 rounds and not just 1. Again, a huge shout out to all these people on screen and anyone else who helped that I somehow missed. You can join the Discord link below for trophy helping. We'd love to have you. But after that, I began the final stage of the real game, being stage 4, having us beat all the roaming racers. A roaming racer is a new feature of this game and the Need for Speed series, being exactly what it sounds like, a racer who is roaming around. And you have to beat a total of 16 roaming racers 3 times each. Then you unlock a boss for each crew included in them, being 4 bosses total. And after you do beat all of them, you get a trophy called Wherever I May Roam. But before that, I got many trophies. First called Pranked from beating a racer named Jesse in an outrun race, which is how these work. You just have to stay in first with good distance to get points, and once you're at 100, you win and you outrun the other racer. I was also using a vehicle called the Nissan GTR Premium while racing the 1% Club solely, because there's a trophy called Supercars for Breakfast from beating them all using just that car. And if you do accidentally beat them before seeing this, you can just replay their hardest difficulty again because they don't go away after losing. But if you do the trophy as it says, it should pop no problem. I then grinded these out more, and my goodness, they were good for rep, getting me all the way to 50 for that trophy, taking away any extra grinding, and I was overwhelmed with white liquid after seeing it popped. I also did get distracted near the end of the roaming racers and I roamed myself, but just into 3 of the trophies on this list, 2 of which I got while going for the third, being 1500 BHP easy, from winning a race with the Koenigsegg Regera without damaging it. An absolutely insanely hard trophy, by the way. But after I failed my attempt, I got a trophy from winning a race event with a modified setup, and then from winning a previously played event again for another trophy. I then tried numerous times to do this race called Midnight Run without taking damage, and it sucked. My best strategy was to hug right on start, then gas it to the left and take the off-road path to get ahead of everyone, and then just try to go as fast as possible without crashing into anything for the remainder of the race. This event is also the best as well because it barely lasts a minute, just like me in the bedroom. Upon finishing it without damage, the trophy pops. And my next 2 trophies were then from the roaming racers of the game because I returned to Claps and Cheeks, completing them all easily using my pit strategy most of the time when a challenger had a good car, and then I got the 2 trophies relating to roaming racers and completion of them. So we finally reached the final stage of the Platinum, stage 5. Random trophies. These are all trophies, as I said, that are random. So strap in, baby, and tell your boyfriend we're using lube tonight, none of that Vaseline bullshit. The first trophy I got was called the Artist from unlocking every visual customization point, and this is a big trophy with a massive grind showing its requirements, but I did it naturally, so suck my white monster and here's a trophy. I then bought all the garages in the game. There was only 4 of them, but 1 trophy pop. I then bought these 2 specific cars with the new garages open to store them in, and I found a certain derelict car for another trophy. I also farmed outlaw parts to have 6 total on 1 car for that outlaw brand trophy, and I drifted for over 350,000 points with the BMW M5 in an event. I won a race by being in last place and then getting to first place on the final lap, another common Need for Speed trophy, as we all know. And for my final random trophy before just more part BS, I performed only perfect gear shifts in a drag event. My last 2 trophies in the game were then both from just having a full setup with the car part brands I haven't done, being first with the Chidori, a damn alien race car brand, and finally with a brand called Carbon, so green earth of them. But then the Platinum trophy popped afterwards, and here it is. So that was the Need for Speed Payback Platinum trophy experience. I gotta say, overall this game was a banger. Some story moments were a bit cringe and could have been better, but I fucking loved the vibe of the game and the plot was very interesting even if it wasn't executed perfectly. I think it's an extremely solid Need for Speed game and probably up there with my most favorite ones I've ever played. But again, that is all for today, and also before I go, today at dinner, Chipotle made me wait 30 minutes after ordering ahead, so I'm never gonna eat there again and I will now starve myself. Fuck you, Chipotle. Fuck you. Respectfully though. You make great food.